When you walk into a brick and mortar store, it's pretty obvious that they're open. The door is unlocked, the lights are on. There might even be a person there. But, website properties, they're a bit different. And so that's what Angie and I are going to talk about today. So I'm Erica Dickstein, and I'm with Spring Insight Marketing.
And I'm Angie Dobransky with RAD Strategic Partners.
Angie, thank you so much for coming and joining me today to talk about this topic. And of course, this topic is something that you and I have actually talked about before, which is what gave me the idea for the video. So let's start out by talking about how are websites different from brick and mortar stores, and why, what are we talking about? What's this about today?
So one of the things you didn't mention in your intro about brick and mortar stores was they usually have an open sign that also switches to closed. And if you think about it, it does. And in my years in retail, first thing we did in the morning when we opened was turn on the open, and then we switched it to closed, right? Or turned it off depending on, what your circumstance was. And you can think about, as a consumer, we've all approached a closed store that left the open sign on and had a moment of confusion.
You're like,
right?
wait, hold on.
Right? And we've also approached an open store that had or maybe walked by an open store that had the closed sign on. I mean, I've certainly driven through a parking lot to see if something was open. And if it was, say, dim and had a closed sign, I might have kept driving. So what is the equivalent, I think, of the open closed sign on your website? That's really the thing, particularly because the websites have been around a long time in the small business world. There's an awful lot of what I consider orphaned websites.
Which is absolutely fascinating, right? Because since there isn't anything that's just sort of the equivalent to the open close sign, right? Then that means that you are having to use other sort of context clues, which is something that we're going to talk about in a couple minutes. But I think you're exactly right. So, with a small business or with a brick and mortar store, you're paying rent. You're paying for an employee to be there. For it to be open, you're making an investment, right? That's not the case with a website.
Not necessarily, right? You know what I mean? People could have a small domain registration fee, built it, forgot about it, and it's just sitting there running, even though the business isn't really open.
Exactly. And so, whether or not consumers realize it or not, they sort of, I think, approach websites for that reason with a little bit more hesitancy than you would a website, than a brick and mortar store, right? Because a brick and mortar store, it's quite obvious. Of course, they're in business. They're there. But with, as you say, an orphaned website, you have to use those context clues. So let's talk about what those context clues are and how you can sort of improve that on your website. So some things that I would consider, is there up-to-date content? Is it, do you have dates on the site? Are there things that you can sort of latch onto mentally and say, okay, yeah, this is being tended to?
Which for me kind of goes to, is the site modern and without obvious errors, right? So, if the site looks like it hasn't been updated in 10 years, maybe they're not still open, right? Is there big chunks of content missing? You know how there can be errors where you get like the little photo icon instead of the photo or whatever. Well, if I see that, that's a clue that nobody's really tending that website, so therefore maybe they're not open. And
right.
Then I think the biggest mistake you can make, and by the way, this is not to discourage regular blogging, because I think everybody, if they want to be seen, needs to be regularly blogging, but is to regularly blog and then stop.
Yes. I cannot tell you how many organizations I go to their website and I'll see something, July 2019, July 2019, July 2019.
And that's the most current blog. And you're
and then you're done.
Right. It's like, well, did they go out of business? Did
the rapture happen in 2019? What happened?
Right. Right.
So
And you're, by the way, a current blog does exactly the opposite. If you can see, like, I think you blog about monthly, I blog about weekly, you can see that I've got a blog every week up to current. You know, I might have missed one or two here and there, but, you know, there's a consistent record. You've got you get a regular blog going. That is an absolute sign that says we're open.
we are monthly, but we are moving to weekly. So there you go. No, 100%, 100%. And the thing that it's very common with small businesses to have a website that has a very, very static appearance with a lot of stock imagery. But that, to me, even the most current website, they do have sort of, on the one hand, maybe timeless, but on the other hand, holy crap, it just doesn't look like time. It looks like time stood still.
Well, right. And I think stock photography often is a clue for me that either maybe they never really are in business, or you know what I mean? Like, and for all of us, because I am certainly guilty of my first website being almost 100% stock photography, because I don't have any photos and all that. But maybe this is a sign of how long you've been in business. Now my website's full of photos of me and my clients, and
Right.
but of course I've been doing this a long time, so I have that too.
Right. Or creating custom design that is appropriate to your business.
Right.
But that is a whole other,
That's level two.
can of, that's a whole other
Right.
can of worms. So let's talk about what are the kinds of content that organizations can plan to put online to sort of make sure that people can tell, yeah, the sign is turned on. We are open. So I'll start out just seasonal content. Like, do you have any? Do you have summer hours? Do you have a do you have content about something that your organization has done recently? At an e-commerce store that I worked at years ago, and actually this was unique to this e-commerce company, and I've not seen it done before, but I thought it was super cool. We had as part of the web design, we had a tree, and during the holiday season we put Christmas lights on it. During the fall we put
that's very
made
cool.
it. Yeah, it was really cool, actually. And then during the spring, they were sort of budding. So each season had a different look. So it always read as being that season. So that's one area. Events or other dated materials. That's something that you talked about.
Yep. Sharing articles, right? Or an Instagram feed, right? It's pretty easy to put an Instagram feed on your website. So if you're posting there regularly, you might as well stream it straight to your website, which shows an active, hey, we're alive. One of the things that I think the first time we talked about this subject is because I had reordered from a place that I'm pretty sure went out of business. And when my order never came, even though my credit card was charged, and my indicators were their website copyright is out of date. They stopped posting on social media. They haven't responded to my email, right? Like, those were for me as a consumer, like, I'm pretty sure they went out of business.
Yep, absolutely. You also hit on updated blogs. So I think making sure that your blog is making sure that you didn't start your blog and then take it off. And I would say, if you really don't have time to blog and you can't hire a web strategy / marketing team, hint hint, then take the blogs off or take the dates down so that
Right.
you aren't putting that information out there. And then this is one I can't believe I have to remind people of, but your copyright date in the footer.
Right.
Keep that up to date.
Right, that was one of my first clues that they had maybe gone out of business. I scrolled down and I'm like, oh, they haven't updated the copyright in like 4 years.
Every year in social media, on social media, on LinkedIn in particular, I'll put an update somewhere right around March saying, "Have you changed your copyright date yet?" And invariably, I will get 2 or 3 people go, "Oh, thank you for the reminder."
Right.
So,
I'll tell you another one, and this works obviously more for a service provider than somebody selling widgets, but a book now button, right, that takes them to a calendar
Oh.
that shows open and book slots, right? Now, if your calendar shows completely open, you need to put some fake slots on there because that's problematic, right? You need to block some of that stuff. And I've also had the frustrating thing where there's no slots open and you're telling me to book a call, so don't let that happen either. But I should, if you're open, I should be able, and I'm scrolling around at 2 a.m., I want to be able to just book a call with you. And that's a big sign if I could just click through straight to a calendar and book a call.
That is a great point, Angie. Thank you so much for coming and chatting about all of this with me and with our audience. Can you tell us how, if people want to get a hold of you, how they can do so?
So radstrategic.com is my website, and either Angie Dobransky or Rad Strategic would be my handle on all social media platforms. So reach out and connect. I would love to be your partner for success.
Awesome. Thank you, Angie. And we would as well. So if you're thinking about your website and you're like, wow, I am not sure how it's reading seasonally, we'd love to chat with you about that and do a consultation. Feel free to go to our website at springinsight.com. And I would super appreciate it if you have found this video to be useful, if you would like it and subscribe because we put out weekly content.